important topic to begin with. If we look at what's happening largely outside, there's a shift towards building in-house legal cells. And there are many reasons to do that. One is, of course, the cost factor. I mean, someone was telling me it's 1/10, you know, of if you don't have an in-house. I mean, I don't know, but it's very costly otherwise. Of course, there's also the factor of efficiency, and also a certain culture where you are sensitized about the legal outfall, you know, as a proactiveness. So lot of favorable things. So I want to straight away dive into it. We have some 25, half an hour here. I want to start with you, Mr. Prasad. When we talk about in-housing and how it's panning out, the entire culture of in-housing in the big corporates and the new businesses, startups, has it become a mainstream phenomena? What are your thoughts on this?
So there are different thoughts. One is, if you look at the India corporate sector, there are companies which are multinationals. There are companies which are Indian multinationals. I think the concept in each group is different. So for example, if I were to look at a multinational where I operate, I think the concept was already there for many, many decades. They already had a general counsel office, which perhaps got replicated to different jurisdictions where these multinationals work. I also worked with an Indian multinational. There, I think the concept was a little different. I think the promoters were actively engaged with some of the senior legal professionals, where they also have a view. Unlike in a multinational where the general counsel will call the shot, and the business person will have a very limited view. In an Indian company, typically a promoter will have a very strong view on all legal aspects, and the general counsel perhaps has to work with the Indian promoter for a favorable or a whatever outcome is expected. So a very short answer to the question is, it depends on what kind of an organization, what are the promoters, how they want to run their law department. Some groups will give the law departments complete freedom, and the lawyers and the general counsel has a lot of say in strategy, etc. But there are other companies which will not give you that flexibility.
So it's the captain of the ship, the promoter who decides, you know, how they kind of steer it through. Mr. Kumar, your initial thoughts on the mainstreaming of in-housing legal counsels. Have we arrived, or are we far away from making it a mainstream?
Thanks. First of all, need to thank BW Legal World for this panel discussion. I think it's a very contemporary subject. To start with, I will say there's been a major paradigm shift in the way in-house legal teams operate. Earlier, if I give a very candid example, if you go in a train, there are two sides of sitting. One, which you see when the things are coming, the perspective.
Closer, no, I said.
Okay. And secondly would be when you are seeing it after the event has happened. So when you're sitting in the opposite direction, you're watching the train move, you only see the event. So I will say a decade back, all the legal department used to do was to do after an event has happened, they should be told, let's get into action. Now it's different, it's a proactive role. You are part of the phenomena from day one. And for all major advices, issues, we are on from day one. So I think that's the biggest change that has happened. Secondly, the role and the importance of legal department has been understood by all sets of, whether it's a multinational company, Indian promoter, they know the value. The difference, I will say, as Akhil rightly put, a multinational is a complete veto. If legal says no, it's full stop. In an Indian promoter environment, he will do a trade-off between a commercial requirement and the legal consequences. So that's the second important thing. And lastly, I think the role of legal is moving, and I don't think it has happened in few smaller companies where the legal head has become the CEOs of the companies. There are a few examples in India. Indigo was one example. Hughes Software, I used to work. The legal head went out, they became the CEO of the company. So I think there is a role where internationally is a big phenomenon, Europe and US. I think the legal heads not only handle legal, they handle business affairs and commercial. They are part of all transactions. So I think as you see the perspective change, I will see the Indian legal heads occupying the corner chairs, also the corner rooms also. So I think that's the biggest important.
So what is emerging is essentially the growing clout of the legal department within the company, and as a movement, the in-housing. Ms. Mehtani, your quick comments on this phenomena of in-housing and the rise of the legal clout within the organization?
Thanks, Ruhail. I think very well covered by Akhil sir and Srivals. That I completely agree. It also, one, depends, is a factor of the organization that you're working for. But largely, I also believe that there's been a paradigm shift, the way the in-house legal teams are viewed and the General Counsel's office is viewed, very closely integrated with business now. The role has changed. Earlier, it was more, of an advisor post, say, a deal is happening or towards the fag end of a deal. But now it's very proactive, closely knit and integrated with business. And it goes beyond the typical legal domain that we operate in. It's not that if it's a matter or an issue of law that, a legal team will be approached. They'll be into the transaction, into the strategic discussions right from the very beginning. So that, in fact, has really changed.
Great. I mean, so a perceptible shift. Ms. Loomba, you were part of corporate, and now you are on your own individual journey. How has the shift? How do you decode the shift from depending on external law firms to in-housing? How are you seeing this shift?
Thank you, Ruhail, and a very good afternoon to everyone. I think the in-house, as my esteemed panelists said, that the expectations from them have increased and they've become more like business partners than just hardcore lawyers. So there, of course, the teams that they are expected to build are, again, business-aware teams. So the first level of orientation of the teams which happened is with the business. And the in-house teams are also, though they are very lean teams in many organizations, are expected to do a large amount of work and outsource less, which is not good news for me now because I have just shifted out. But yes, they are expected to do a large chunk of work and be on top of everything, be on top of, there are organizations which have specialist teams like an IP team or a contract team or so, if they have that, luxury of huge teams or large teams. But then teams which are lean, they are expected to have a flavor of everything. So they are expected to know IP, they are expected to know contracts, they are expected to know litigation. So the dependence on external lawyers is there, but yes, they are expected to do a large chunk of work in-house and also have that kind of business awareness. I hope that answers.
Ms. Walesha, you have four panelists before you. So your quick thoughts on this entire, movement of in-housing.
Well, I believe that the shift in the role of the in-house counsels has led them to wear the hat of a business enabler as well as a risk mitigator. So it has, there's a paradigm shift in the roles only pertaining to being a legal advisor. Now they've been involved in all the business strategies, and it's in a way good. It's improvising their roles, their involvement, as rightly pointed out that they are now becoming and moving on to the lead business roles, and I think that's critical because unless and until you have that side of knowledge, that side of ideology about the business, it's better you can handle it from the legal angle as well. So I think it's a good shift that we are seeing right now.
There's a common point that emerged was proactiveness. That was, I think everyone mentioned this word, that one of the big shifts that happens within housing. When it comes to an organization's culture, and traditionally the legal department was like a touch me not, as you earlier told me, like you will always, and the seat, you will be on the opposite seat and they will come to you only when there was a crisis. But I think there's a shift, at the basic shift within the organization, that there's a certain proactiveness, more communication, the silos are breaking. Mr. Prasad, starting with you, what I'm saying, is this imaginary or is true?
No, this is completely true. And I think the general counsel's position, a part of the senior management team itself speaks about the importance of that role. Because as you rightly say, one more word I would like to use is a paperweight. So in olden days, in Srivals, in our times, mostly the lawyers were thought to be that they are paperweights. Whatever file, not an electronic file, a file goes into the general counsel's office, stays there under a paperweight. So that was the kind of a thinking, but definitely, the last 15, 20 years have been transformational. And I would say because a lot of convergence has happened in India in terms of great opportunities, more and more competition within the country between great Indian companies and foreign companies has completely transformed the reliance upon a general counsel. And as we have already spoken, but the role is changing every year. Every year you see a general counsel is doing so many different things which we did not do last year. And that is something which is a very good sign, and that only speaks about the confidence that the management has in a role of a general counsel. I see a lot of students here, and one thing I would definitely like to call out is, your colleges and universities perhaps tell you to specialize, but I would definitely say to generalize, because that is what a general counsel means, that you can't be a specialist of one subject. You never know where the rocket will hit you tomorrow morning or a Monday morning or a Sunday evening. And that is exactly what we should be prepared for. And that is what the management looks upon us, that this person will go on a leave, but will never put out of office. You can ask this person a question whether sitting wherever in the world, perhaps this is the only function in the company which is never on leave, I would say. And that is why the management looks upon us that no matter what, skies will not fall, and if they fall, lawyers will help us.
Wonderfully captured it. Mr. Kumar, the same question, but a specific example from how Sunteck is handling this culture, the legal and other teams interacting more, finding a boardroom voice in the boardroom. Give me an idea of how it's happening within your organization.
So I will come to that, but I want to supplement the point which Akhil said about students looking to general counsel's role. I think the in-house role gives you 4 important elements: the contracts, the litigation, which is strategic, you make the strategy on litigation. Third is compliances, and fourth is advising the business on day-to-day basis. And there, you need to yourself understand the business, how the business functions. You should know what's happening in industry. So a lot of things come in supporting you. So I think if you, and in fact, I would say apart from interning in a lot of law firms, take an opportunity to do an internship in corporates, you will see a major difference in the experience you have. And off late, nothing to say, but the pay packages of top general counsels are equivalent, if not more, than the CFOs and the CEOs. I think there is a recognition of their talent. So I think that's one aspect. Now coming to what kind of a role I play in terms of it, I has been working in various sectors. I worked in telecom, media, airports, e-commerce, and now in real estate. All these are regulated industries. So one is to understand when the regulation comes, you need to know what can you do and what you can't do clearly. And the interpretation aspect is between not the shades of black and white, but the gray areas. You need to tell the department what you can do, what you can't do, and what could the consequences. Real estate was never regulated. In 2016, the RERA Act came, and thereafter all the various, it's a state subject, so every state has a different rules for that. And Maharashtra started with Maharera, the best of the world. So I think when you look at that, we have to ensure that we are compliant as well as we do the business. So we have now 3 streams in my department. One is the corporate legal, which looks at documentation and advisory. The second is litigation, which is vendor litigation, disputes with partners or anybody with even with the government. And third is regulatory, which takes care of compliance of project registrations, day-to-day compliance, disputes with customers. So I think if you look at the role, it is, as rightly put by Akhil, it's a 24/7 role. Each department will come across one day. So if a new ad is put in the paper, they want to know what disclaimer should be there. It balances both the business as well as takes care of the risk mechanism of the. So I think it's a role where you have to everyday innovative look at things, what's happening in the industry, take care of what learnings from other industry you can imbibe here. So I think a lot of things come, And I think every day is an exciting chapter. It's not you're doing the same copy-paste model. So I think that is where I think the excitement comes to us.
The thrill is there, right? Ms. Mehtani, the cultural, the silos, the breaking of silos versus what it used to be, you know, well, you won't talk to other departments or they won't talk to each other. Give me a sense of that shift that you have seen and how is it panned out in your company?
I'll speak here from the perspective of my team members because I see a lot of young lawyers in the audience. See, it's not really limited to the role of the general counsel leading the teams, but also the team members. And as Akhil said that, you know, our role is more 24/7. It's also to the extent of tracking who all are on leave. They'll never allow the whole legal department to be on leave, and somebody has to be there. So that also speaks volumes about how not only the GC, but the team members are integrated with business. And I can see it happening practically. Not everything comes to me. There are, you know, the way our department is structured is, there are different lawyers working on specific tasks. And they are very well integrated with business. Without even their advice or their support, I don't think anything is moving. So it's a very, very proactive role and very encouraging for all the students here that right from the beginning, you have a role to play with the business. And you know, the past 2.5 years have taught us a lot. And that has also led to a change of the general counsel and their teams to be continuous risk mitigators and business enablers. You know, we wouldn't have thought about what all different functions or different roles we would have done in the past 2.5 years, which we would have never dreamt of, right? So I think a big change and a huge opportunity as well.
Right. Ms. Loomba,
I just want to add one thing. I think the important thing is the role of in-house legal is no more legal. They have to wear a commercial hat in all discussions. And usually when you hit a crossroads, you have to tell if there's a big stone, assuming on a crossroad, you should be able to tell whether to jump over the stone, go through the left, to the right, or return back. And that you can only do if you know the legal position, the industry position, and the business. I think that's the most important role we play.
I think yes.
And a very well-rounded opinion. You know, not only from a legal perspective, thinking in mind, you know, what all risk is involved, how the industry is responding to it. So a very well-rounded opinion
that free runway is possible only when you wear those two hats of legal and profitability. Ms. Loomba, quickly, your thoughts on the cultural shift of in-house departments. How are you reading this?
Well, I've worked across around 6 organizations. I began my career with British Petroleum and then with Unilever. And when I was in BP, it was in oil and lubes sector. So I was in a sole contributor role. So I was expected to be in each business meeting. And it was so difficult for me to kind of divide myself and be in each business meeting. I was expected to be in a supply chain meeting. I was expected to be in a sales meeting and so on and so forth. So that is the paradigm shift in the role of a legal counsel. So you are expected to align with each segment of business and to understand business. And unless you understand the supply chain, the sales team, distribution system, and so on and so forth, I mean, it's very difficult. But it was the beginning of my career, and I made an effort. A lot of hard work went into understanding that side of business. And then I went to Unilever. It was like you had to be on top of the business also, and then on top of your legal, you know, knowledge too. So in 15 minutes, you would get around 100 emails, and you're expected to answer to those emails without actually getting into books. So unless you understand business and you develop those relationships with your business so that they give you some time to answer those emails, so those, you know, you will not be able to perform your in-house counsel role. So gone are the days when, you know, files used to be kept as my esteemed panelist mentioned that under the paperweight. Gone are those days. You have to. I remember once I was just answering emails in Unilever, and my boss said, "This is not the way you're expected to work. You have to move up from your desk, your workstation, go sit with the business, understand the issue, and then advise. Just don't advise from your legal knowledge. You have to understand that side of business, finance." So we all must have all my panelists would have undergone that training for finance for non-finance. So you're expected to understand reading of balance sheets and other financial documents to be an efficient in-house lawyer.
Right.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have Ms. Walesha. So at Yum Digital, so the legal department, other departments sit and have coffee. I mean, how is it like?
So we have a very people-oriented culture. I would say it's challenging at times because, as rightly pointed out by Mr. Prasad, that it's not that you can work in silos now, right? You have to be involved with the different teams, with different divisions. You can't choose a specialist role, but a generalist role. And it's very critical from a general counsel point of view, because you can't just let your teams be involved only for the legal work, but also for the other. You need to, upgrade, empower them, your bottom business lines, to handle those risks, to, have those strategies in place. So everything coming back to you would not solve the issue. I am glad to hear from Ms. Pooja that, otherwise it will become a roadblock. Otherwise you're not empowering your teams enough, you're not letting it go. So you have to empower your teams, you have to be in that generalist role, understand the needs of the business, the finance, the tax, n number of issues, and I think that's the most challenging part every day that we face.
So many interesting stories emerging out of this conversation. We have roughly 3 minutes, and I want to come to you in TV format, 30, 40-second answers. Starting with you, Mr. Prasad, that what is your advice when it comes to building, in-house departments? What are the right steps to take into account to build a robust, functional, efficient in-house legal department?
See, I think the first and foremost is the mindset. The mindset is the general counsel should assume the entire responsibility, not only for legal functions, but in today's world, for risk compliance, CRM, everything, whether it's a posh committee, everything. So there is no definition of what should go under a general counsel's role. So first and foremost is your mindset to be adaptable, that whatever the business requirements are, I will, as the general counsel of the company, be able to manage it. And then very clearly identify that what are the kind of people you need. We should understand that a legal department in any company is the smallest department, usually. If you have, say, 500 finance professionals, in our organization, we have about 600 finance professionals, but just 3 legal people, including myself. So you don't have a luxury to have too many people in your company. And then when you have people, the difficult task is to convince your team to take more and more work. So it's not about 50 people organization for a law department, 3 people organization, but they have to do everything. So I think that is the most difficult part. How do you define your scope? You can't. You need to have a mind which is open, and then encourage your team, which is very small, to continue to do more and more work. I think that is the most important thing.
I think it all depends on what kind of industry you are. So you need to structure a department depending on what kind of advices you have to do, number one. Number two, you need to have a good succession planning in place so that there is growth for people internally as well as for them to grow up and as well as for you to have that gaps, number two. Number three, you ought to have a lot of training modules kept ready for the business and for your team so that there is less work coming to you because you tell, and what's the concept of playbook is basically that only. You have the best practices, pooling of that, all things put in one place so that everybody knows what to do. So that's 2. And lastly, there is a very good interplay between using in-house versus outsourcing work. So you need to know what kind of matters you have to give out. So there could be 4 types of matter which are named. The first one is run-of-the-mill job, consumer, litigation, etc. You outsource it completely with a fixed cost. Second is advisory work. third would be M&A or transaction, and last would be mother battles, something of litigation where your company would be wiped out. There you go to the best of the law firm. So it's a balance, and the last is your legal team should have a good networking with external law firms. I think if you don't have engagement with law firms, you will not able to pull them out for work. So it's a balance of all these points can put together at a night cell, and you can give it a platter. That's it.
Ms. Mehtani.
I would just divide it into the 3 S's. It's about, and in whichever industry you are, it's sometimes very industry and business centric. But think about the structure. And when you're thinking about the structure of your team, adaptability and agility is the key, because you need to change with time. Second is strategy. Strategize from time to time, and it cannot just be that, oh, we've strategized or thought about the next 6 months or a year and we are sorted. You'll have to probably be on the go, strategize, know the business OKRs, know the goals of the business, know the business strategies, and then, because we have to seek first inputs and then provide our outputs. So know the business for sure. And then support. Support would include how you upskill yourselves, how you use external help and internal help. Internal help, when I say, is we've seen that now that we are involved in a lot of work, not only limited to the core legal domain, we should also break down our work and see how we can utilize the internal functions which are not legal to support us, say for specific project management, right? We need internal people. We have data analysts, business analysts, you would need that. So divide your work and take internal support as well. I think these are the 3 S's, and if you take care about it, you can definitely evolve the legal department. The 2 things that we should be mindful about always is adaptability, agility, and then therefore maintain a balance.
Perfect. Ms. Loomba, your quick thoughts, and then,
Yeah. So I think very well defined by my co-panelists, but then you need to kind of compartmentalize your work, which can be outsourced and which can be handled in-house. At the same time, try to empower the business so that they can handle some part of the work. Empowerment means through trainings. So there are some templates which you can build and just empower the business to use those templates rather than coming to you on routine basis. So these are few quick thoughts.
I think
Final
it's
word,
well covered, but I'll just add on to it. So I think along with adaptability, agility, it's very critical to empower as well. So when I say empower, I mean not holding everything to yourself, trusting your people, and because if everything is coming up to yourself, you will become redundant and it's not serving the purpose. So empowering your teams enough, empowering and trusting your teams enough, to handle the things. I think adding on to that, adaptability, agility, and empowering.
And Mr. Prasad, you raised the point of that disproportionate, teams. That was also maybe some other time we'll discuss it further. But yes, you want to add?
Lastly, I think we must embrace technology. There are a lot of software that are coming for litigation management, contract management, and a lot of stuff. I think that is a time to do that, and that will throw a lot of issues on IP, data protection, etc. I think that's it's a big chapter in itself,
I know,
but I will not touch that.
Completely out of
just
time.
one point on use of technology, that we have to think about a multi-year approach when we are adopting technology. Not everything that's available off the shelf may be useful for our business or for our team.
True.
Very
the balance is
the balance,
Absolutely.
but
So
definitely use of technology is
Absolutely.
very imperative, more
Absolutely.
so after the pandemic.
So, but thank you so much for sharing all the thoughts
One
and
more thing.
capturing the.
A law department is like an Android open platform versus an iOS, which is a closed platform. So new things keep coming to the law
Absolutely,
department.
but thank you so much for sharing this entire journey of how it has evolved over a period of time and what are the different things to be adopted to make in-house legal departments more effective. Thank you all, my panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very